Quit showing off.
Mayor Adams, I just want to introduce myself. I'm Tara Murray with National Urban.
Oh,
So
pleasure.
thank you so much for joining us.
Family, before we get started, if we could do just a phone check, please make sure your phones are on silent or off.
Oh, is it directed right here?
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. You can do better than that. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. All right. My name is Dr. Ansel Augustine, Krewe of Pyros, class of 2024, Katrina survivor from New Orleans, culture bearer. I'm a black Mascan Mardi Gras Indian from home. Also been living in the D.C., Maryland area, working in D.C., living in Maryland for the past 1.5 years. So I'm glad to be here. On behalf of the Krewe of Pyros Foundation and in partnership with the National Urban League, I welcome you to this commemoration and press conference marking two milestones: the 20th anniversary of Hurricane Katrina and its devastation in New Orleans and the Gulf Coast area, and the 10th anniversary of the Krewe of Pyros. Thank you to the Krewe of Pyros and the Urban League team that helped put this together. Today is a day of remembrance, resilience, and recommitment. We honor those who we lost, celebrate the communities that rebuilt, and shine a light on the culture that carried us forward. We begin our time together in prayer, grounding ourselves in gratitude and in purpose. Father God, in your word, Isaiah chapter 41, verse 10, it says, "Do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be afraid, for I am your God. I will help you, I will uphold you. My victorious right hand will be with you." Good and gracious God, we thank you for this opportunity to gather. We thank you for Krewe of Pyros Foundation. We thank you for the National Urban League. We thank you for those that have come through the waters of Katrina, those experiences that we had, good and bad, that shaped us into who we are. We pray for those and those things that we've lost, those things that we still grieve, those things and people that we still mourn, knowing that you have brought us through that and you will bring us through whatever comes our way now. Lord, we ask you to guide this press conference, those that have been a part, but also the future that we are here to celebrate as the Krewe of Pyros continues to celebrate its entrance into its 10th anniversary. Guide our leadership, guide our servants, guide our work as the organizations here that are represented, so that what we do gives you honor and glory, so that we may truly be sailboats and lifeboats of peace in a world of injustice. And we offer this and everything else up in Jesus' precious name as we say amen, amen, amen. All right, thank you all. To begin, we are honored to welcome leadership from the National Urban League, whose partnership and solidarity have been vital in this moment of reflection and recommitment. Please join me in welcoming Tara Murray, Executive Director of the National Urban League Washington Bureau and Senior Vice President of Policy and Advocacy for the National Urban League. Tara.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. As Dr. Augustine stated, my name is Tara Murray, and I serve as Executive Director of the National Urban League's Washington Bureau and Senior Vice President for Policy and Advocacy. And it is a privilege to host you today in our space, in our offices, and to welcome you to today's event. As Dr. Augustine also mentioned, today is about remembrance, it's about resilience, and it's about recommitment. 20 years ago, 20 years ago, I'm reflecting, I've been reflecting on where I was 20 years ago, and I was in law school. And I remember the news reports and seeing everything coming out of New Orleans and out of Louisiana. And as a child of Louisiana, both of my maternal grandparents are from Baton Rouge. I was horrified by the images that I saw and, frankly, the lack of response from our federal government. And so 20 years after Hurricane Katrina, we are gathered here today to honor the lives that were lost and the communities that were forever changed by those incidents. We also are here to lift up the resilience that emerged. Resilience carried forward by the Krewe of Pyros over the past 10 years. And so for the past decade, the Krewe has been a living testament to what we at the National Urban League believe deeply, that when people are empowered, that when culture is honored, and that when community is strengthened, there is no storm that can wash us away. And so as we gather in our nation's capital and in this space where advocacy meets action, we are reminded that remembrance must fuel responsibility. Responsibility to craft and to advocate for policies rooted in equity. Responsibility to amplify the voices of survivors, and responsibility to ensure that resilience is the expectation. My grandmother says, to whom much is given, much is required. And so on behalf of the National Urban League and on behalf of our president and CEO, Mark Morial, I'd like to thank the Krewe of Pyros for carrying the torch of remembrance, of resilience, and of recommitment forward. May this day inspire all of us to honor the past, to confront the inequities of the present, and to build a more just, equitable, and resilient future. Thank you and welcome.
Thank you, Tara. And now we will hear a recorded message from Mark Morial, President and CEO of the National Urban League, who continues to champion equity and resilience across our nation.
First, I'm Mark Morial, President of the National Urban League. I'd like to be at the important press event today. Let me first thank the Krewe of Pyros Foundation and all of its leaders. The Krewe of Pyros has brought the spirit of New Orleans to the East Coast. Their Mardi Gras celebration that I've had an opportunity to participate in is one of the best examples of how New Orleans culture touches and reaches far beyond New Orleans. On this 20 years since Hurricane Katrina, I want to remember those who lost their lives, the almost 2,000 people in Louisiana and Mississippi. I want to remember those whose families and whose lives and whose homes were completely disrupted. But I want to celebrate the power, the resilience, and the fight of the people of New Orleans who fought to bring it back, who fought to ensure that its culture, its music, its food, its heritage, and our people would stand strong in a time of great challenge and great difficulty. New Orleans is strong and mighty. Our culture and our people are strong and they are resilient. And while the city has a long way to continue to go, on this 20th anniversary, let's celebrate all that makes New Orleans not only great, but makes it the unique American place. I salute the Krewe of Pyros. I certainly salute the work of the National Urban League and the Urban League movement across the nation. And once again, I'm Mark Morial, and I approve
Tell Mark we approve his message too, all right? Thank you to the National Urban League for your leadership and for standing with us. We now turn to our civic leaders who represent the strength of communities that Katrina touched and transformed. So family, please first let us welcome Mayor Timothy Adams of Bowie, Maryland. Mayor.
Hey, thank you for the opportunity to be here today. I'd like to thank the National Urban League and, of course, the Krewe of Pyros for all that they have done and continue to do. You know, as a son of Louisiana and now the mayor of Bowie, Maryland, I can appreciate all that has gone into the resilience of the people of New Orleans, but also for what has been done here in the DMV as well. You see, understanding that resilience isn't just about rebuilding. Resilience is about family. It's about culture. It's about tradition. One of the things that amazes me about the Krewe of Pyros is that tradition that it has brought. See, I was often taught that tradition is what you rely upon when things are in the middle of the storm. And the Krewe of Pyros has brought that tradition, that culture, that love, that commitment to family here. So again, to all of those who have suffered and continue to suffer since Katrina, and let's not we forget about those people who are still trying to rebuild, who are still trying to recapture their lives, who are still trying to find the strength to move on, that we support them. We believe in you. And though Katrina was 20 years ago, for many it was just like yesterday. And we will never forget. And we will continue to do all we can, particularly with the National Urban League and with the Krewe of Pyros, to make sure that culture and that tradition is here on the East Coast for all of us to experience. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. And just so you know, I might be calling you to borrow that tie during carnival season, all right? Thank you again, Mayor. Thank you for your words. Next, we'll hear from Councilwoman Dr. Kashina Cross. Let's welcome her, y'all.
Well, welcome to a glorious day in Washington, D.C. Well, we are happy to be here. I am the councilwoman of the city of Glen Arden, Dr. Kashina A. Cross. It is my indeed honor to be here to serve such a, not only a worthy organization, but to also recognize that 20 years ago, our lives changed forever. And it wasn't just because one city experienced it, it was the devastation of the nation, the failure of government, the inability of us to resiliently come back. But 10 years in, we have the Krewe of Pyros who found that it was not just only a priority, but it was a necessity, that we elevated people who had found death and destruction as their everyday language. You changed the tone and the energy of the nation, and we thank you for that. So I am literally from Mississippi, so I am your cultural neighbor. So first off, let me just say, give honor to J.C. Walker and also to President Cleve Davis for the work that you're doing and how you just incorporate all of us who are not necessarily born in New Orleans, but who also understand the culture of a people when lack is a preeminence in their vocabulary. You have changed the dynamics of education. You have grown the growth of community, and it's not just a bring that fire party. It's not about the party people. It's about the changing of the lives. And that's what you have always represented to me and others who are like me, who are leaders in this community in Prince George's County. It's a beautiful thing to be neighboring to Washington, D.C., and to be able to see so many young people get education opportunities, to see families who were ripped apart built back together again. And you did that, Krewe of Pyros. You did that. So I am honored to stand with you on this 20th anniversary of Hurricane Katrina, but I also want to acknowledge that it was more than just a storm. We as leaders in the community took a mighty lesson from that. We started to evolve our processes and our procedures, and our disaster response programs took a mighty leap. We took a look at how we as a community was responding, and not only did the storm try and wash away our hopes, but it did not do that because we as a people stood for the dreams of the nation. I was in San Antonio, Texas when this happened, and I will tell you that the Levi Company opened up its doors, the Coca-Cola Company opened up its doors, and neighboring people all the way to Texas found opportunity to put hope back into the community by way of clothing and, beds and medical supplies and things that were necessary. See, this is the strength of community. And when you as an organization join with community leaders, and you've heard from several here, you will see, National Urban League, that we as a people change the dynamics on the ground and that we have nothing but hope left and love. This is how we drive forward. So today we gather in unity. Once again, let us take up this charge. Let us ensure that our work as civic leaders, and I talk to myself, empowers and honors those that we are always uplifting and that we are paving a stronger future. Tragedy cannot have triumph when hope and love prevails. Amen. So I am grateful for this opportunity. I'm grateful even for the disaster that reminded us that we were more than just lifeblood. We were the blood of the nation. It reminded us that we were more than just color, but we were people and we were Americans. So to that I say, Katrina was not just a storm. It was a mirror. It was a mirror for us to look at ourselves. Krewe of Pyros, you took that mirror and you gave it a podium and a platform. And you exceedingly extended that platform to people like me. I stand here in tears because I remember the cost that people paid. I remember seeing mothers, fathers, dogs rolling down the water. And I couldn't, for the life of me, understand why boats could not be made, cruise ships could not be sent. See, I think like a leader. There are change actions that we must take. And I encourage you on your 10th anniversary to let not your goodwill be held hostage by legislation. Thank you so much. I'm Dr. Kashina A. Cross. Keep moving this mission forward.
Yo, thank you. Let's give it up one more time for Councilman Cross. All right? All right. As we continue, we now invite forward Ms. Simone Radley, who's over the Po' Boy Power Charitable Initiative, Bayou Bakery and Coffee, who's serving us the food afterwards, a coffee bar and eatery in Alexandria, Virginia. Go ahead, Ms. Simone.
Well, I don't first want to say, I don't think it was fair for me to go after Dr. Cross because she was so amazing. Anyway, it was a pleasure to hear you and speak in your passion. And I want to thank the Krewe of Pyros for asking me to be here, very honored, and also the National Urban League. So thank you very much. Yes, I'm born and raised in New Orleans. I would normally be dressed in a dress, but I needed to get my mojo on and say the who dat of New Orleans, right? So thank you. And I want to follow in, and what I was going to talk about was, it is about resilience, but it's also about community. Because I felt, yes, our leaders weren't there for us. And it was about the people that came together to really put us back, that city of New Orleans, together. But I was here living in D.C., and all of my family was in New Orleans and Louisiana. And I remember getting that call and hearing, the waters are rising, the waters are rising. We're not going to be able to get out, because my family stayed there. They thought we always did. When you're from New Orleans, you can survive a hurricane. We've done it for all these years. So it was like, what am I going to do? How am I going to help them? They finally got to D.C. My in-laws lost their house in Katrina. But I became that community for them in Washington, D.C. and Virginia. But it was like, we got to help these people in New Orleans. How are we going to get money? So I got with Mitch Landrieu, who was the lieutenant governor at that time, and whom I know, and I said, we got to throw a fundraiser. We're going to get the D.C. community to help the New Orleans community. And what do you do and how do we speak all together? Is through food. So that's how we all unite. So that is what I did. I said, we're going to do Pool Boy Power. That's going to get us together. So there was a restaurant called Acadiana that was opening up. I was working for them. And they were about to open their doors that week. And I went, I'll be damned if you're going to open those doors. You know, you're not going to do it on the backs of New Orleans when they're suffering like that. You're throwing a fundraiser. I was about to be fired, I think. And so I said, I'm going to persevere and do this. So it was that resilience that brought in of a New Orleanian. We all got together. My husband, David Gross, also from New Orleans. His family, who lost their home, were there. We all started. We got 25 chefs around the community here in D.C., and we sat and had a second line of pool boys, and the people started coming. We made T-shirts. People were buying the T-shirts off our backs, just handing us $50. We'll buy that pool boy for $100. Within 2 hours, we made $30,000. It was amazing, okay? And that was 12 days after Katrina. It was amazing. So Mitch Landrieu was there, handed him the check, and he brought it directly to people that needed help and to get out, transportation, whatever we could do. So the only thing I'll end it is that I wanted to say this one last sentence, is a places after my own heart. The levees might have broken, but the bonds between people, between community, between strangers who choose to care for one another, those remain unbreakable. So thank you all for having me to tell my story.
Appreciate you. All right. Thank you, Simone, and thank you for the food donations and your amazing words. We're grateful for that. And if anybody you need a New Orleans fix, go to Arlington, Virginia, get that. The food isn't $10,000, but they raise the money for the good causes, all right? And now, as we move on with our time together, we have a video message, recorded message from our Congressman Troy Carter of Louisiana.
I'm Congressman Troy Carter, and I proudly represent Louisiana's 2nd Congressional District. It is a pleasure to be with you today. It has now been 20 years since Hurricane Katrina devastated our communities. 20 years since lives were lost, homes destroyed, and families displaced. But it was also a turning point, a moment that forever changed the culture, the priorities, and the resilience of Louisiana. We lost family, we lost friends, we lost ways of life, but we're resilient and we'll never quit. Hurricane Katrina isn't just history, it's personal. We carry the memory with us every single day. And while we remember the pain and the loss, we also draw strength from the courage of the survivors who built their lives and our communities against all odds. They rebuilt things that some said couldn't be rebuilt, some that thought it shouldn't be rebuilt. Their determination inspires us to keep building safer, stronger, and more equitable communities. As storms grow more intense and last longer, our commitment to preparedness and recovery must grow stronger too. That means sound policy, smart investments, and science not politics, guiding our decisions. As a founding member and co-chair of the Bipartisan Disaster Preparedness and Recovery Caucus, I've made it my mission in Congress to champion these priorities. We're working to advance legislation that strengthens disaster readiness, delivers timely and equitable relief to survivors, and ensure communities can recover fully and swiftly. Preparedness isn't a partisan issue, it's a moral one. So when we reflect on 20 years since Katrina, let's commit to a future where every family has the support they need before, during, and after disaster strikes. Thank you to the Krewe of Pyros, President Mark Morial of the National Urban League for hosting this press conference and for your incredible work showing real leadership in times of stress. Together, we can honor the past, protect the present, and prepare for the future. Yes, we are in this together. May God bless you and keep you as we continue to build forward for a more fortified Louisiana, to build for a community that truly learns from its mistakes and demonstrates to the rest of the world how resilient we are. God bless you all, and thank you for your leadership.
Family, can we give it up one more time for all our civic leaders that participated in this? You know, moving up here a year and a half ago was a leap of faith, moving up here by myself. And I'm grateful for my Krewe of Pyros family, and I mean that. These are family members, you know, just like family. You love them all. You may not like them all, but you love them all, right? And it is my honor at this time to invite our founder and visionary of this whole process, Mr. J.C. Walker, to share reflections on cultural resilience, the effects of Hurricane Katrina, and the birth of the Krewe of Pyros. Please welcome J.C.
Good morning. I'm assuming I don't have to reintroduce myself, but I'll get to the point. 20 years ago, Hurricane Katrina changed everything. It took lives, it displaced families, it reshaped cities. But it did not wash away our culture, our faith, and our spirit. Out of that devastation, a seed of resilience was planted, and that seed became the Krewe of Pyros. When we started this crew, we didn't want to just have a crew that parade. We wanted to honor our ancestors, tell our stories, and keep alive the traditions that Katrina could never destroy. For 10 years, the Krewe of Pyros has been more than a cultural organization. We have been a family, a sanctuary, and a reminder that joy itself is resistance. Our theme today is not just remembrance, but recommitment. We remember the lives lost, the communities displaced, and the pain endured. And we recommit ourselves to making sure the next generation inherits not just trauma of Katrina, but the triumph of resilience. We recommit to our culture as a tool of healing, to community as a source of strength, and to unity as a path forward. The Krewe of Pyros was born from Katrina, but it is not defined by tragedy. It is defined by the lights we carry, the joy we share, and the resilience we embody. Today, we honor the past, but we also light a torch towards the future. And that is the Krewe of Pyros. I am J.C. Walker, and I approve this message.
Thank you, J.C. All right. The Krewe of Pyros has always stood for culture as a tool of healing and unity as the path forward. Today, we reaffirm that commitment in partnership with the National Urban League. So at this time, family, please welcome Antonisha Tony Wiley, Senior Advisor at the National Urban League, and Lisa Harper, Krewe of Pyros Board Member, Chair of the Social Justice Action Committee, and National Urban League Liaison, for a major announcement and call to action. Tony and Lisa.
All right, thank you so much for your words and your leadership, JC. And welcome to the National Urban League. We're all family now. We've spent this morning reflecting on resilience, remembrance, and recommitment. But let us be clear, remembrance without action is not enough. Hurricane Katrina exposed what happens when communities are left vulnerable. And since then, we have seen hurricanes, fires, and floods, storms, and other natural disasters continue to devastate communities across this country. Too often, relief is slow, inequitable, and insufficient. We cannot let history keep repeating itself. That's why the National Urban League is very proud to stand with the Krewe of Pyros and communities across this country to support the bipartisan Congressional Disaster Preparedness and Recovery Caucus. This caucus will work across the country and across party lines to make sure survivors get the relief that they deserve. Faster, fairer, and with dignity. It would also help Americans prepare for the disasters ahead, because preparedness truly does save lives.
Thank you, Tony, and thank you to the National Urban League, and thank you to the Krewe of Pyros, my family here in Washington, D.C. As a daughter of Katrina's legacy, and as the liaison between the Krewe of Pyros and the National Urban League, I know firsthand that culture and community can carry us, but policy must protect us. This caucus is not just about politics, it's about people. It's about families who shouldn't have to wait for relief. It's about children who deserve for schools to open on time. It's about seniors who deserve safe housing, and communities who deserve to rebuild stronger, not weaker. So today, we're asking you not just to remember, but to act. Right now, you can join the fight. Take your phones out. Everybody, take your phones out. And text Katrina 20 to 24284. Again, Katrina 20, and that's Katrina with a K, in case you didn't know, to 24284. By doing this, you'll send a message directly to lawmakers, urging them to support the bipartisan Congressional Disaster Preparedness and Recovery Caucus. Every voice matters. Every message counts. Together, we can turn resilience into reform and remembrance into real change. Tony.
Thank you so much, Lisa. Thank you all for taking the time to take action, and we hope that everyone who is joining us virtually is doing the same and sharing this message with everyone you know. Let this be the moment where we not only honor the past, but shape a better future, not just for Louisiana and New Orleans, but for this entire country. Again, text Katrina 20 to 24284, and let's ensure that no community is ever left behind again.
Thank you, Tony and Lisa, for that powerful charge and invitation to collaboration. And now for the media, we now open the floor to you all for any questions you may have. This is an opportunity for clarity, for headlines, and for community insight. Please direct your questions to our designated speakers, and I will let Lisa let you know who are the designated speakers.
Thank you, Ansel. May I have our captain and founder, J.C. Walker, our president, Cleve Davis, First Lady, Executive Director, Cuba Walker,
and Mitch Opaski, our financial.
Any questions from the media?
So we will proceed with media questions. Yes.
This is a question just for whomever would like to respond, but 20 years later, I know we talked about policy changes that we can see, but what else do you feel still needs to be done, not only in New Orleans, but also for other victims of natural disasters across the U.S.?
I'll repeat the question. So what other policies, besides the policy, what other things do we see as how we can help communities across with disaster?
Yes.
Okay. Yes. Okay. Who would like to take that question?
I'll take that question. Cuba Walker here, the executive director of the crew. I still see much work that needs to be done in the realm of education for our youth. KOP is taking a stance in the STEM world these days, so we are behind the movement. Okay, so education, we're standing on that in the Krewe of Pyros. Our education chair is here in the audience, Dr. Ashley Hutterson. Our director of education is behind me, and also our president, Cleve Davis. So we are going full speed ahead in the realm of education.
Would anyone else like to answer that question? You have something? Yes. Come.
How to act
Yes.
in that. Well, just by my personal experience is that if you wait for someone to do it and be told, then it probably is not going to happen. So if each person takes that opportunity, gather your friends and your family and start something, no matter how small or large, it will have an effect and will build people together to assist.
And one thing I will add to that is the sense of community. One of the tenets of the Krewe of Pyros is community service. We have education, we have community service, social justice, and organizations coming together and serving the communities themselves as well, and not just depending on policy goes a long way, I believe, in that way.
Thank you all for responding to that question. Do we have any other questions, please? Any questions from the audience?
Do you guys know, has anything changed in the last 20 years to help prevent this from happening in the future?
Has anything changed in the past 20 years to help to alleviate this from happening in the future?
I'll take that one. So I've been, I've been here in DC for 20 years. So I can speak to what has changed here. The Krewe of Pyros, was born to, assist with things like Hurricane Katrina. When we landed in DC, the Hilton on Connecticut Avenue opened their doors to us. We actually lived there for 3 months. So if something like this ever occurs again, we know what's needed. We know what has to happen immediately, the first 24 hours, the next 48 hours, the next week, the next month. We can actually provide a road map to evacuees because we lived it. We were a part of it. So I believe that is another element of the Krewe of Pyros. We are here standing ready, and it doesn't have to be a storm. It can be a storm of life. It could be a storm of mental health. It could be a storm of food inequity. It could be a storm of inequality. We're here for all of the storms. So the Krewe of Pyros is standing ready. We're capable. We're able to assist in any storm that may occur 20 years later.
So for 30 years, I've been working with the restaurant industry in New Orleans. I still do there. I go down every 4 to 6 weeks. I work with Ralph Brennan and a number of people. And the one thing that we did specifically learn from that is that there wasn't we took everything for granted. There wasn't a plan of action. Now I know all of the restaurants in the city of New Orleans where so much of the community of New Orleans works in restaurants. What was failed then was how to get the people out of New Orleans quickly, to be able to try to educate New Orleanians that now they learn your life is at risk if you don't listen and you evacuate in time. So there was a situation where no one knew, because you remember cell phones really weren't working at that time. So there was not a way to communicate. So there is a backup plan now, I know, for the restaurant group I work with. We know exactly where that person lives, their phone numbers, where their next immediate place would be able to go if there was another hurricane, which we're in that season now. So we have a way to contact those individuals, get money to them where their next place is. So we have an emergency exit plan, which is important, I think, to have. And I think a lot of the restaurants took that upon themselves to build that, because there was no way to get in touch with these people at that time. And that was a huge lesson learned.
And what was it like coming from New Orleans after the storm or during the storm up here? How hard was that journey? How hard was it to leave everything behind? And were you guys accepted here?
How hard was the journey after Katrina coming to the Washington, D.C. area?
Okay, I'll take that one. So the journey was unbelievable. It was chaotic, you know. It was blindsiding, or not knowing where to go. I think the blessing is that I knew one day, we would move on the East Coast. So coming to that crossroad, it was like, okay, what do we do now? And Cuba looked at me. We're in a car, expedition. I have a big suitcase. She has a duffel bag. We're coming right back. I said, well, let's go on the East Coast. We were planning to go there anyway. So that actual, 48-hour journey, Cuba, first to evacuate from New Orleans the Sunday before Katrina, it took 30 hours to get to Houston. Now, I don't know if policy or procedure could change in that, what we can do about that. But it took us 30 hours to get to Houston, so we exhausted. People were running out of gas, which was not cool. Maybe line up gas tankers along the way, doing storms, putting things in place, logistics. But when we got to Houston, it was still kind of chaotic because we didn't know where we were going to go. We both worked, thank God, but we thought about the people who did not have jobs like us or depended on a monthly check. We checked into a hotel, with our own money. And then it was later Cuba found out through FEMA that they were flipping the bill, let's say, for the victims. So we stayed in Houston a little while. And at this time, the journey got even more chaotic because my parents, they evacuated late, but Cuba's family was still there, and they stayed in our house. So communications went down. I don't know what we can do about communications in that, sense, but we could not contact anyone. My stepbrother was Mayor Nagin at that time, his executive security. The last time I heard from my brother was right before the storm hit. He said they're telling us to go downstairs. He stayed in the Hyatt Hotel. No communications, which made it even more difficult. You can't contact family that stayed behind, and we're gonna run out of money, we're gonna run out of gas, 30 hours to get to a state 6 hours away, right? So we hunkered down in Houston. We came back to northern Louisiana, stayed there at Cuba job. She linked up with her job. She was the executive director of assisted living at a community in New Orleans. And we stayed there for a little while. Then they started allowing us to go back. Maybe, I can't really remember the time frame, but we went back to assess the damage. Was not ready for that. When I talk about, looking across the skyline of the city, smoke billowing, helicopters just flying around, it was like a war zone. You know, we were on the west bank of New Orleans, and coming down Manhattan, we literally were probably the only car on the road and had to dodge through the telephone, towers laying across the highway. I mean, it was just chaotic. So we assessed the damage, got in the house, covered up the windows and everything. Then, again, we got on the road, and it was like a 48-hour journey to here, the East Coast. Exhausted, tired, insomnia. You can't go to sleep because you're watching the news. The CFEC families, you hear about whole families being washed away, in the Lower Ninth Ward, where I also lived as a child. And it was just chaos. The journey was chaos. That's all I can say. So, early we talked about a policy, procedures, or anything. I don't know what more we could have done, but I have seen America great, where we helped other nations and everything. So it's not a slight or anything, but home come first. So, the journey was chaotic. But coming to the East Coast, we were welcomed with open arms. As Cuba said, the Hilton Hotel, I have mad love for them, And it was just strange because during that time, they had the Congressional Mardi Gras. We were wondering what was going on. We saw people in tuxedos, and the staff told us, oh, they do like a little Mardi Gras. And we were like, what? So that was uplifting. So after living 3 months in the Hilton Hotel, we finally binged out. We got an apartment in Alexandria, Virginia, and it's been history from there. But it was still the burning of missing home, missing loved ones, still not hearing from family months later. Not hearing from family. So, when you include that into the journey, you can see how chaotic it could be. Although someone was there to help us, you're seeing past that because you're worried about home, Now, I tell people in my story, although we were planning to leave or move on or careers or anything, being ripped away was the hard thing, So I don't care how much planning you did for the upcoming months. If you're ripped away, PTSD and et cetera. Thank you.
I have one more. This storm was 20 years ago. It was catastrophic, and you guys all went through some serious trauma. How has that trauma changed you, and what have you guys learned since then?
The question is, how has the trauma changed each of everyone? JC, Cuba.
Wow, how has the trauma changed you? That's a heavy question. That's heavy. It did change us. It changed me. I was always an independent child, even from 2 years old. Even before that, I was just very independent. That trauma made me ultra independent, and that's not always a good thing. I read something the other day that extreme independence is a trauma response, wow, that trauma, it definitely fortified me. I didn't know what my life would be in 20 years. I mean, you see me standing here today. No one could have told me that, we would be here with the Krewe of Pyros, 10 years strong. But I'm definitely a stronger individual. I'm definitely prepared for anything. You can throw anything at me at any time, and I believe that I can handle it. I believe that I'm just more fortified. I'm Ford tough, for real. I am really Ford tough. I know I'm cute and all, but I am definitely Ford tough. So my motto is, bring it, bring it. Shoot your best shot. Shoot your best shot. I have something for you.
All right, so, wow. Those who are of faith, if your faith is not stronger from Hurricane Katrina, I don't know what to say to you. Because again, I was always a logistics person, a person that could lay things out, knew what I wanted to do and everything. But when I got here, the reality check was, this is no longer boot camp. You have to understand the New Orleans culture with family. We came from probably throwing a party almost every weekend, a block party. Cuba and I, we were, well, I have to say it, we were the favorites on both sides of the family, Family would always come to our house and we would throw parties and everything. So people were always around us, but, to have a moment when you could not find family and family was not there, and you get here, I don't want to say it was a strange land because I do have family here. A lot of people offered us things, but we could not comprehend that. Well, why don't you come stay, with us until, and as Cuba said, she's an independent person, and Cuba like her space. I thank God she let me in her space, because I thought when we got together, all right, so I'm going to be on this side of the house, you're going to be on that side, I'll be, I don't know, your own bathroom. But anyway, it strengthened our relationship. I always was, I would say, a water walker. I believe. I'm just a person of faith. I know something good is going to come out this, but to deal with Cuba when it was uncertainty and she wanted to go home, she wanted to go, back to her family and everything. It put a strain on the relationship, and that's the inside stories that a lot of people don't know about, the stress that it put on, communities, let's say. Some people did not have a home to go to. Thank God we had a home, and a little patch in here, a little patch in there, and we could still say we have a home in New Orleans, but some people are just gone, from there. I know some people who never returned, probably never heard from their family again post-Katrina. So coming here, it was a breath of fresh air, very welcoming. We started landing jobs and everything, and the people were so attentive to us, would always ask us about our culture, and kind of like how the a portion of how Krewe of Pyros, I'm assuming that was my push to do this thing, but it's really a love story. She wanted to go home. They were doing the first Mardi Gras parade post-Katrina, and I told her, dear, we're not going back. I'll fly you home every weekend to get your hair done, your nails done, but we're not moving back, and that was stress right there. So never miss another engagement, any engagement, Bayou Classic or what have you. We missed the Mardi Gras. She got in the car, and I didn't even know she was leaving me. She was heading home. I don't even know if she knew how to drive back to New Orleans then. Cuba is not a driver. 3 hours, she would have been heading back to me. But anyway, she was heading back to New Orleans. We missed Mardi Gras. I just started a job. I didn't have any leave. I couldn't take the time off or anything. So, I said I have to do something. It was a burning desire in me, and they had other organizations here, that was sort of culturally fellowship structured, the Louisiana fellowshipping. But it wasn't really the culture as far as Mardi Gras and what we are accustomed to. So I said, I'm going to start a Mardi Gras crew. And all my coworkers, man, you need to do something New Orleans. So I really wanted to open up a sports bar, who that sports bar and et cetera. But that didn't pan out. And here we are, the Krewe of Pyros. So, that's the glory of the story, in connecting with the Urban League, and other organizations, Events DC and, other, neighboring, Maryland welcomed us, Virginia welcomed us, and that was beautiful. And for them to accept our culture, let alone, y'all, now I don't want to put nobody down, but there's a lot of folk from New Orleans here. So it was like leaving home to come home. All right, I'm out of time. Yes. I'm sorry, y'all. I'll approve that message.
Mine, what changed me is preservation, is the importance of preservation. So when you're from New Orleans, no matter if you're black, white, purple, green, and gold, we all have the same traditions that have been our foundation and have shaped us. So if New Orleans, when people were saying was going to be erased because of Katrina, how are they ever going to come back? My husband and I are like, how are we going to preserve those traditions in DC so they're not lost and that people will remember something that is so important to us and our culture? So I love that you do the parade and all of that. And my husband and I said we have to open up a place, and we opened up Bayou Bakery to really honor those traditions that sort of make us. And the city of DC and the DMV embraced us by that. And then my husband just quickly wrote a cookbook because he was a pastry chef, and he was scared a lot of those pastries were going to disappear with the restaurants that disappeared, that were no longer anymore because of Katrina. So he put a cookbook together called Damn Good Sweet, and it was desserts from New Orleans. And that was the way. Is so the more we talk, it's about preserving and honoring our tradition because it's so important to us and it's who makes us.
Yes.
So that was that change.
So my story is a little different because I was no longer living back home. I had left many years ago to pursue a naval career. And the interesting thing about the Katrina story for me is that we buried my mother that same week. So I happened to be in Louisiana for that. And my wife and I and our children had just departed before Katrina hit. But the way the tragedy changed me was I'd been away so long. Now, we always cook Creole food no matter where I was. but I'd been away so long that in some way I felt I'd lost a connection to our culture and to our traditions. And this just resurfaced all of that in me and made me reconnect to our culture, reconnect to our traditions, and gave me the fire to join JC and the Krewe of Pyros to make sure we continue to carry those things forward. So that's how it changed me.
Thank you so much to the media for your questions, and thank you to all of you for answering. Right. Back over to you, Dr. Augustine.
Thank you all. Let's give it up for our designated speakers. who didn't realize they were designated speakers until right before, right? Amen. But as I said before, I'm a culture bearer from New Orleans, Black Masking Mardi Gras Indian. And we have a saying in our culture that's no whom bow, which means won't bow down, don't know how. And when we look at the resilience, which some of us are tired of being resilient, but that's just the cross we carry, being where we're from and just what we're called to do. We have to remember, we'll bend, but we don't break. And that is the power of the faithfulness and the witness of those of us that are Katrina survivors, New Orleanians, and Gulf Coast people. And that's the gift that we have today. And also in doing that, we're here to tell those stories. So thank you for sharing your stories. But we have other stories that we want to share. And before we go into that, the reminder is this, that Cuba said, our executive director. You can't help people unless you allow the people themselves to show you the help that they need. And that was one of the big fumbles in Katrina. We had all these experts coming in telling us what we need to do without listening to us. And so to avoid that, that's the power of this partnership with Krewe of Pyros and the National Urban League and the work that will come from this. Amen? All right. So thank you again to our media partners. We're grateful that you're here. So at this time, we now center the voices of survivors and communities who lived through Hurricane Katrina and continue to inspire us with their resilience. So at this time, I'd like to welcome our president, Cleve Davis, president of the Krewe of Pyros, for Survivor and Community Reflections. Cleve.
Thank you. Thank you, and good morning again. When I think about Hurricane Katrina, two words immediately come to mind: loss, and love. We lost lives, we lost homes, we lost time. But we also found a love for one another that could not be broken. A love for culture, a love for music, a love for community. And it's that love that carried us through the darkest days. I stand here not only as the president of the Krewe of Pyros, but as a witness to the survivors that turned their suffering into strength. A witness to communities that refuse to give up. A witness to a culture that the water could not drown. Katrina was a storm, but we were the levee, and we held. The Krewe of Pyros is proof that resilience isn't abstract. It's living, it's breathing, it's singing, it's dancing. It's young people learning the songs of their grandparents. It's families finding joy even in the shadow of tragedy. It's a community that says, we are still here, and we will always be here. So as we commemorate 20 years after Katrina and 10 years of the Krewe of Pyros, let this not just be memory. Let it be momentum. Momentum to serve in our communities. Momentum to be resilient, not just as a necessity, and to build communities where resilience is not just a necessity, but a way of life. That is our charge. And together, we'll follow it through. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Donna Walker Muhammad, also known as Donna Marie, born in New Orleans, Louisiana, and raised in Marrero, Walkertown, on the West Bank of New Orleans. And today I live in Alexandria, Virginia, in the DC metro area. I am a proud member of the Krewe of Pyros. I'm a proud charter member of the Krewe of Pyros. Immediately after Hurricane Katrina, I moved to Houston and worked at the Michael E. DeBakey Medical Center. I had never considered living in Washington, D.C., but a colleague who knew I was looking for a position reached out about an opening at VA Central Office, or the headquarters. So in April 2006, the VA shipped my household goods, and I drove alone to D.C. to set up house, leaving my children behind. My son was finishing up his final year at Xavier University as he prepared for grad school, and my daughter spent her sophomore year at John Ehret High School before moving to Alexandria, Virginia. Again, I do. I love Washington, D.C. My career grew with responsibility and leadership. I earned my master's degree from Catholic University here in D.C., and I served at the highest levels of the VA, serving alongside the Secretary of VA. I served 2 undersecretaries for health. D.C. also gave me community. We have a large population of people from Louisiana right here, and so we had the food, the culture, the music, everything to remind me of home. New Orleans has prepared me for the world, and I honor the change and the loss of Hurricane Katrina. And I stand on the shoulders of those who taught me that I belong everywhere, because I carry New Orleans, my ancestors, and my culture within me.
Hello, my name is Trizelle Reyes, and I'm originally from Port Sulphur, Louisiana, and currently reside in Washington, D.C. Hurricane Katrina affected my family significantly. In fact, we lost everything, including our home that was completely paid off. So we had to start from scratch. We church shelter out in Lafayette, Louisiana that took us in. I was 12 years old at the time. They helped me get registered for school out there to provide a sense of normalcy despite the chaos that was going on in my life. They provided us with food, shelter, with resources, and clothing. Additionally, after Katrina, teachers from Teach for America were deployed to the area. I'm grateful to them because it is one of those teachers, Aaliyah Batia, who had came across my junior year, who let me know that I should attend college. I am now a first-generation college graduate as well as a law graduate. During Katrina, I did not have much faith in government. But it was when I moved to Washington, D.C., and when I became a small business owner that faith was restored. D.C. is the blueprint for when it comes to doing local government right. You are not familiar with Washington, D.C. and the programming and the investments that they make into their communities. Check it out. Thank you.
Peace, family. How you doing? This is Dr. Ansel Augustine, KOP class of 2024, New Orleans native from Tremay, 6th Ward. Also a culture bearer, Mardi Gras Indian, Black Mexican Indian. As the past year and a half, I've been living in the Maryland area while also working in Washington, D.C. As a Katrina survivor, I think for me, my testimony is something that has motivated me to make an impact and rebuild my community as best as I could the past 20 years. As a youth minister at St. Peter Claver Church, in various ways called with other youth workers around the area to help moderate some of the tensions that were going on in Houston ISD with our incoming students from New Orleans and the Houston students that were there, breaking up fights, trying to alleviate some of the conflict that was there. After the water was drained, I came home to New Orleans to help rebuild our church, St. Peter Claver. So at night, I would live in the balcony, protecting the space, and during the day, I would move the pews to get out the church. And after that, would use social media or whatever means I could to find our families around the country to figure out what we could do to bring them back home, to reopen our church and our space. We opened our school, St. Peter Claver Elementary School, as a central school, as a feeder school for many families that could come back. And then our youth group was the same. It became a safe space for young people, no matter their denomination, no matter their background, for them while their families were rebuilding on those Wednesday nights. Grateful for the opportunities that I have here now in the DMV area and with our KOP family, allowing us to share our Louisiana culture and traditions to make an impact here in the DMV and beyond. So thank you for allowing this to be a home away from home, and also a space where we can share our unique gifts of our Louisiana culture, faith, and heritage. Right out, family. Peace and God bless.
That last guy looked kind of familiar, huh? All right. No, but thank you for telling our stories, because our stories have power. And that's the power of our organizations and the work that we do. So thank you again to all of y'all for being here. And thank you, Cleve, and thank you to all who shared testimonies. And we now move to a moment of recognition. I invite J.C. Walker, our founder, and Cleve Davis, president of the Krewe of Pyros, to present a commemorative plaque to our civic leaders that spoke today. Please welcome them, y'all.
To our civic leaders here in the DMV, and for those online, the District of Columbia, Maryland and Virginia, the DMV. We want to give this to you as an expression of our gratitude, and I'll read one presented by the Krewe of Pyros Foundation, Inc., in gratitude to the DC, Maryland, and Virginia communities. As we commemorate the 20th anniversary of Hurricane Katrina and honor the resilience of those displaced by its devastation, we extend our heartfelt thanks to the DC, Maryland, and Virginia communities. In our search for new beginnings, you welcomed many of us from Louisiana with open arms, offering refuge, opportunity, and a place to call home. Now, as we celebrate the 10th anniversary of the Krewe of Pyros, we also celebrate the cultural bridge built between Louisiana and the DMV. Through our annual Mardi Gras Ball weekend and year-round service and cultural initiatives, we remain committed to honoring our roots while uplifting the community that embraced us. thank you for your continued support. We look forward to many more years of bringing that fire to the DMV as we continue to illuminate the path to empowerment.
So could our civic leaders come forward?
Yeah.
Councilwoman?
You all can hang it on the national monument.
Thank you. We didn't need anything. It's an honor. Oh, that's nice. Thank y'all.
Oh, yeah,
What, oh, you want to see?
Yes.
Oh, over here.
Right, come,
Move over to that side.
yes.
I know, come on.
Maybe now it's my time to become a community leader.
You certainly are. Yeah, you'll pull me with a full house?
All right, y'all gotta tell me which way to go.
You gonna
Oh, okay.
This way?
Over there on that side.
Okay.
It's fine, yeah.
Have my phone.
Let's
How do you want to
do
see
photos
this?
now, yeah.
Photos?
Carlos, this is like when you go home and mama got dinner on the stove.
Yeah.
You're like, I can't say hi. Thank y'all.
Thank you so very much.
No, thank you all.
Truly.
I should be wearing red.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Let's give it up for our civic and community leaders again, y'all. Oh, okay. We're good? All right. Thank you again, y'all. And now, Lisa Harper, Member at Large of the Krewe of Pyros Board, Chair of the Social Justice Action Committee, and National Urban League Liaison, will present a gift to the National Urban League in gratitude for their enduring partnership. So, could y'all come up, please? Thank you. Let's welcome Ms. Lisa.
We are so honored, and we are always grateful for the partnership that we have with the National Urban League. Yes, please come up. Yes. With the National Urban League. We could not be here today or do what we've done today if it were not for that partnership. So thank you to Mark Morial, thank you to Tara, Tony, and Anika. Thank you so much. We are honored to present to you a picture from one of the brothers of New Orleans, Ted Ellis, and this piece is Life Begins Anew. And that is what we do together. We bring life and we begin anew. So this is to the National Urban League. Yes.
Let's come over here. This is beautiful. Yes, thank you. We're gonna hang it up on the wall. All right.
All right, family, let's give the National Urban League another round of applause, please. Thank you for the partnership in this. And thank you again for your time. As we close today's commemoration, we do so not in silence, although there are moments of silence happening around the country in commemoration of the 20th anniversary of Hurricane Katrina, but in this space, we will do it in song. Because our culture has always been both a remembrance and a resistance. So at this time, please welcome Ms. Claudette Reams, corresponding secretary of the Krewe of Pyros board, to offer closing reflections and to introduce our cultural showcase. Ms. Claudette?
And thank you so much to Dr. Ansel for putting everything on today and the vision of today. We're grateful. Thank you. For those of you that know me, you know that I should stick to this sheet of paper that is in front of me. However, I feel conflicted on the inside, so I have to speak from my heart. But I will go back to the sheet of paper to make sure that I don't miss anything. 20 years ago, I reflected on where I was. I was so detached, unsaved, not even really aware of Hurricane Katrina. I was in Kansas. I was in the military. I didn't know any of you. But what I see today, I see resilience. I see strength. I see love, community, and just so much drive. And I'm so proud of each one of you. And I know without a shadow of a doubt why I'm here. Divinely assigned to serve the community with the Krewe of Pyros. And I couldn't imagine life any other way. I'm just proud in so many ways. And I just can't even imagine what the future will bring. When you say $6 million in scholarships, or is it $60 million in scholarships, I see it. 10 toes in, committed, divinely assigned, I see it. And again, I'm proud of you guys, but now I'm going to go to my sheet of paper to make sure I don't forget anything. As our founder reminded us today, the Krewe of Pyros was born out of devastation, but built on resilience. As our president shared, even during loss, love sustained everyone. Love for each other, love for culture, and for the community. 20 years after Katrina, and 10 years into the journey with the Krewe of Pyros, we stand as proof that joy is resistance, that culture is survival, and that unity and love are our greatest strength. As we close, let this not only be memory, but momentum. Our call to action, simple yet powerful: keep the culture alive, invest in the next generation, and carry the spirit of resilience into every single aspect and thing that you touch. We especially thank our partners at the National Urban League for standing with us in the work, for lifting up voices of survivors, advancing justice, and joining us in ensuring that our legacy is not just one of survival, but of progress and promise. That is the Pyros way. That is God's way. That is our charge, and together we will keep the fire illuminating, alive, and bright. Hey, I got one more reminder for you guys. Reminder, take your phone and text Katrina 20 to 24284. And as our closing prayer, we will have the video performance, the 79ers gang, Stop the Water. Thank you.
Lord, the water is rising. I'ma talk about the water cause I got wet. Oh Lord, the water is rising. Some floating in that water, that shit was a mess. Lord, the water is rising. Vivid memories stuck in my head. Oh Lord, the water is rising. Pray that our kids saw a lot of people dead. Oh Lord, the water is rising. Gotta walk through that water, check my mama's house. Oh Lord, the water is rising. Saw a note on the table saying they got out. Oh Lord, the water is rising. People looting and killing, didn't know what to think. Oh Lord, the water is rising. Dead bodies in the water, the city starting to stink. Lord, the water is rising. Can't get pictures
Amen. I want to take a moment to thank my brothers in culture, Big Chief Romeo and Big Chief Jermaine, for allowing us to use that song as our closing today. So thank you all again for joining us today in remembrance, in resilience, and in recommitment. We now invite our speakers, civic leaders, and partners to gather for photos here by the step and repeat, which I didn't know what a step and repeat was until I thought it was a dance, until I moved up here to gather for photos. Members of the media are welcome to capture this closing moment of unity. And afterwards, those that are in attendance, we have refreshments across the hall. Thank you again, and God bless. We can gather here at the steps and repeat.
Can I also just get a round of applause for Miguel and James, who have been here since last night, making sure that all the tech, the room was set up, and everything has gone well today. So thank you so much.
KOP, folks, raise blazers, come on. All right.
All people in the back.
Two lines.
Come on, Patrick.
Wait, how fast is it?
Can we get?
Oh, no, we're gonna move the chairs for Mary. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Yes, God bless you. Thank you.
I'm gonna get that tie out.
Thank you so much.
See you at the ball.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you. And I've already sent mine out.
Oh.
Wesley.
Urban League family, don't go too far. I'm right here.
How fast you
Here on three. On three. One, two, and three.
Wait one second. Patrick.
Let's get that.
One, two. One, two. And one, two. All right, hands up. Here, come and get in with us.
Yeah.
Settle down. Yeah.